In today's video, we're going to talk a little bit about how to sit the canter. Now, the canter is a harder movement to sit because it has a greater moment of suspension than the trot. So the canter is a 3-beat movement, the trot is a 2-beat movement, and the walk is a 4-beat movement. Now, I find it really helpful to understand what's going on with the horse's body when I'm trying to figure out how to ride it better. So in the beginning of this video, we're going to talk about what is happening with the horse's legs and their body and the moment of suspension. Then we're going to talk a little bit about what you can be thinking about and doing as you're getting better at riding the canter. And then at the end, I'm going to share with you an exercise that you can do just about anywhere that can improve your canter even if you're not on your horse or at the barn. So in the canter, if I was going to the right, we have our first beat is the outside hind foot. Then we have the inside hind foot and at the same time the outside front foot. These move in a diagonal pair. Then the third beat is the inside front foot. And this is the one that you can check your lead on while you're on. Which beat in the canter do you find the hardest? Comment below so that we can start a discussion. So in the canter, what it sort of looks like if you're watching from the side is they land on their third beat and then they start their moment of suspension, which brings them to the top of the crest. As they start heading back down is their first beat. Then we go the second beat, and then they land on their inside front leg for the third beat. After the third beat, they start their next moment of suspension to jump them back up to the top of the crest of the canter, and they start those 3 beats again. Now let's think about this from a place in the saddle. So what should we be doing while these 3 beats and moment of suspension are happening, right? So what I like to think about is the moment of suspension happens, and then as they start coming down, what a lot of people do is they lean back. They lean back as they start jumping up because they don't want to get thrown up in the air higher than the horses at the top of the crest of the movement. So what tends to happen is they get flung a little bit farther than their saddle does, right? Now, a lot of people try or are told to lean back so that they can stay with that. Now, I find that this actually is counterproductive because if you lean back, your hips then become locked and there's nothing to follow your horse in the canter with. So instead of leaning back, what should we do here, right? So what I like to think about is when my horse starts finishing their moment of suspension and heading back down, I want to be sitting. And not just any old sitting, I want to be helmet over shoulders, over hips. We've heard that a million times, right? But the reason that we want to do that is because we want to engage all 4 sides of our core and actively sit down, right? So if I'm leaning back, all 4 sides of my core are not going to be capable of functioning equally and together, right? So if I am on top of myself where all 4 sides are the same length and the same strength, then I can send myself down in that moment, okay? So that's for the first beat of the canter. For the second beat of the canter, I want to think about scooping myself forward. As my horse sends down to come back up, I want to do the same thing. Now, a lot of people either start to drive themselves harder than their horse is just because they are a little bit left behind in the first moment, or they feel like they need to work harder than they actually do because the canter's hard for them to sit. You don't need to work hard. You just need to get your timing and your strength right. So what I think about for the second beat is I sit down, and then I don't use my shoulders to scoop because that doesn't help anything below the belt, right? So then I just scoop my pelvis forward as I'm still pressing my core down. So I scoop like this for the second beat. And then the third beat, as they hit their final foot onto the ground, I want to already be thinking about the moment of suspension. I want to be encouraging the jump. That's where all of those judges that have ever said needs more jump in the canter are coming from. So what you want to do is after you go down, scoop, you want to be sending your horse back up for a greater moment of suspension. Okay, so that's for my third beat in the canter. And what do I mean by send my horse back up or encourage their jump, right? So first beat, I send myself down. Second beat, I scoop my pelvis forward. Third beat, I want to be thinking about almost taking my front bone and a little bit of my seat bones and almost think about picking the front of your saddle up or picking your horse's shoulders up. Not by your hands, not by your shoulders, but bow down core muscles. Think about underneath your belt. So what you want to do is you're sending yourself down, scooping, and then you want to engage your core and pick the front of your pommel up. Think about with your front bone. And then you're not being left behind, you're not being concerned, you're being confident because you're now owning the movements, and your horse is going to appreciate that confidence and guidance, and so are you. Now, before we get to the awesome exercise I have planned for you guys, if you found this video helpful at all, why don't you go ahead and subscribe and like the video. You can also click on the bell to be notified of other videos like this one. Okay, so as promised, I'm going to give you one super awesome exercise that you can do just about anywhere to encourage your core and your seat to be more confident in the canter. So the first thing that you want to do is get something like a bench or a mounting block or a chair with no back that you can move around a little bit, all right? Then what you want to do is scoot your seat bones to the edge of your chair or whatever. We'll call it a mounting block because that's what I have. The thing that I love about using big mounting blocks is that it's a little bit harder because there's so much weight behind me. So once you have your seat on the edge of your surface, you want to put your feet underneath your knees, okay? We want to make sure that we're not using our legs to do this because we need our core and our seat to be engaged instead. So feet underneath your knees, and what you want to do is pick up the back of whatever you're sitting on, and you're going to engage your core and your seat to pick the edge up, okay? So like this. And then you're going to organize and put it down. So what I'm doing there is really practicing the first two beats of my canter. So one is sitting tall, sending my core down and pushing my seat down. The second is scooping my pelvis forward. And then you can use your imagination for the third and really encourage your horse to jump up. So ready? 1, 2, and then 3, right? And then you can let it back down. And then 1, 2, 3, let it back down. And now you can really notice what your habits are when you're on your horse. If you're trying to go here and pick it up, that's just not going to work. I'm never going to be able to send my shoulders into my seat bones in a downward position and actively pick this up with control. So I can't do this. I need to pick my shoulders up directly over my hips so that then all 4 sides of my core are being engaged. So ready? One last time. It's 1, 2, and then imagine picking your horse's pommel up for 3. I hope this video was super helpful for you guys. I love the canter, but I've also learned how to control and encourage the canter, and I hope you do too.